Welcome to this week's Expert Series with another amazing guest. I hope you're having an amazing day, whether that's morning, afternoon, or evening for you. This week, I am joined by my amazing friend and sushi lover, I have to say, the amazing Wendy Watkins. Wendy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Loubna. And I didn't tell you this before, but guess what I'm doing right after this meeting?
You're having sushi for lunch.
I am. It's a beautiful day here in Atlanta, and I get to meet a girlfriend outside and have some sushi, and I'll have a piece for you.
Oh, thank you. I love when people say, I'm having sushi on your behalf.
Yes.
I haven't had sushi in quite a while with all of these lockdown troubles. It really is more obstacles because I have to order it 24 hours before, and then I have to pick it up, get into my car, get that mask on, which I absolutely hate to do so. So it really is getting on my nerves. But we are talking about joy, so let's keep it happy. Wendy, for those that know you, you live in the United States and you call yourself a joy strategist. What does a joy strategist do?
Well, I strategize with people so they have more joy in their life because it doesn't come naturally for everybody, right? There are a lot of people that it does. Loubna, you're someone that joy comes naturally. And for myself, it didn't always come naturally. So it is a learned behavior. And the benefits of joy, it's not just so you can walk around with a smile on your face and feel good, but we know from many studies that joy is what helps us to feel more positive, which leads to more productivity, which leads to bigger impact and success. So that's exactly what I do, is help people uncover what may be getting in the way of their joy and then creating a plan to move them forward to experience the ultimate in mental well-being.
I love that. And I'm going to be very honest. It didn't come naturally to me. I mean, if you had known me when I was 12 or 13, you would have met the most shy girl in the world. I just wanted to be alone, preferably with a book of about 400 to 500 pages. I've read Charlotte Bronte, Jane Eyre, love those books because they were 400 pages. So I could really dive into it. And I would literally escape in those books. I would be completely immersed, completely in flow state, to be fair.
Yes.
And if you were to talk to my mother about it, she would say I could call on her and she wouldn't even know that I was calling on her. And she transitioned from telling that narrative to I could have let a nuclear bomb go off and I wouldn't have noticed it because I was so immersed in reading that book and that story. And I'd rather live in those stories than live in real life, to be fair. So it is learned behavior. Happiness and joy is something that you need to learn because most of us have been conditioned to believe that you can be happy when you are successful. However you define success, and most of us have adopted a definition by society where it means you have a lot of money, you have a certain status in the order of human beings, if there was ever anything but an order. So you have to learn it. We have to unlearn some of the things that we used to believe and do and learn new beliefs and new things. So this group is filled with purpose-driven entrepreneurs who are dedicated to transform their frustration, confusion, and overwhelm into success, fulfillment, and optimum well-being. So what are some of the things that you would share with this group about how to make that transition into more joy?
Well, that's a good question because there's going to be different things for different people. But what I want to dive deep in today with you, Loubna, is this concept of strategic optimism, right? Because it's having a plan, right? Just like a joy strategist. I didn't realize that strategy is a big word for me, right? That so many people have a plan, a health plan, maybe, right? They want to stay healthy, they'll exercise. People have a savings plan to save money. They may have a plan for vacation or a plan for what they're going to eat for dinner. But do you have a plan to increase the optimism in your life, right? And optimism being that hopefulness and confidence that things are going to work out the way you want them to. And goodness, as an entrepreneur, optimism is a key driver in creating success, because without that hopefulness and confidence, it can be really hard to get out of bed sometimes, right?
Oh,
It can be
yeah.
really hard to take the no's that we have to hear, right, in that sales position. Because when you're an entrepreneur, you're in sales, whether you like it or not. And salespeople, good salespeople, naturally have optimism because they will hear many, many no's before they hear a yes. So when you have optimism, you're actually celebrating the no, because you know you have that hopefulness that you know the yes is coming right up. When you don't have that optimism and you have more of the pessimism, then you take those no's personally. You think that everyone is going to tell you no. You think that that's the end of your business and you can't do things. Maybe I shouldn't say you. I have felt that way before. So, right? So being able to learn how to increase your optimism is going to be, it's a soft skill to support you as an entrepreneur and having more success.
Yeah, and I can totally imagine that as an entrepreneur in a period of time that we're in now with the global pandemic. I mean, the environment has changed dramatically and drastically since March last year. And I'm going to be honest here, even my optimism took a nosedive when we were hit with lockdown in the Netherlands first. I was really in for a couple of days in the panic state of, oh my God, well, I'm a professional speaker. This is what I do. What? And we didn't know at that time. That made it even worse, because how can you be hopeful when you don't know, is this going to take a month? Is this going to take 2 weeks? Is it going to take longer? Because it was really in a what's the word I'm looking for? A dilemma, because you didn't have any influence. It could have taken 2 weeks, it could have months, and we're 18 months in almost in this global pandemic, and that made it even more difficult for me to tap into my optimism again, because okay, but I don't know if it's going to flip back, if it's going to prolong, and if it's going to for how long. And all of those questions and challenges came up in my mind. And I really took a couple of days to stay in that panic state of, okay, what do I do next? I mean, I'm a speaker, that's what I do. And well, how is it going to impact me, my health, my family, my well-being, my business? And it wasn't until I reached out to a friend and shared the panic, and we were like, okay, she was like, let's go. Let's see what you can do. Let's bring this back into the circle of influence so that you can tap into that hopeful, because now you can create your path despite the circumstance, because we can't change anything about the global pandemic. I wish I could with that magic wand, but I can't.
It's true. It's true. All we can do is do what we can do for ourselves, right? In that. And so during these times when you can't find the optimism, right? Because it's like, where did the optimism go? Then it's about the opportunity to tap into finding the hope and the confidence. So that's where we have to go. And one of there are two things. My dog.
Oh, he's agreeing with us. Wendy has a dog,
He
ladies
is.
and gentlemen.
He's like, I want
He's agreeing with us.
Give me the optimism. So, the two things that I know we can do, right, to help nurture the optimism when you can't find it is, one is to pay attention how you talk to yourself, right? It's that explanatory style, because if you can realize that this is going to pass, right? This too shall pass, just as everything else does. When things are going well, remembering that that will pass. When things are not going well, that will pass. But remembering that and not taking it so personally, not making it so pervasive in your life that just because, for you, Loubna, that it's impacting your speaking career, even though you're still speaking, right? Here we are today, that it's not impacting all areas of your life. And so that gives you the opportunity to put your attention on other areas of your life that are going well, right? So it's not your whole life that is impacted by this. And it's a learned skill of how you speak to yourself, right?
Yeah.
We naturally have a negativity bias. Our mind goes that way naturally. So it's very important to be able to pay attention to how we're talking to ourselves. And one way to do that is, yes, we are going through this pandemic. It's changing every day. But do your best to stay away from watching the news, because the news is one thing that truly takes your optimism away.
I
Right?
know, I so know. And I stopped watching the news many, many years ago. And again, I'm honest and open about it. I have started back watching the news
Yes.
because there was so much shared around the global pandemic that I could not just stay away for nothing, because there was information that I need to know about this. So I have started, but still, it's a very intentional practice for me. I don't just go on automatic pilot. And one of the rituals here in the Netherlands is the 8 o'clock evening news. A ritual. We used to always gather together as a family at 8 o'clock. Television goes on the news, and we would all watch that news for 30 minutes.
Wow.
And it really is a ritual here in the Netherlands. There are still people that do that. There are people that even add a morning ritual, a part of their morning ritual, into reading the paper before they go to work. And many, many years ago, as soon as I heard about some scientific research about the impact of watching a couple of minutes, and this was 3 minutes, I believe, of news in the morning, and they researched two different groups, people that did watch the news in the morning and the other group did not. And those that watched the news for 3 minutes in the morning, they were asked how did they feel, so how happy were they? And they asked them the same question 8 hours later. Those 3 minutes of news in the morning was impacting their happiness level 8 hours later. So you're carrying it with you during the whole day. And I was like, I don't want to have that subconscious impact carrying with me, because no one is aware of that having an impact. And I said, okay, I'm going cold turkey, no news for me, which was very difficult because I like to be informed.
Yes, you do. You do want to be informed. And I'm like you, recently I have started watching the news as well, because I do want to be informed. Move from the news to either a TED Talk, because I get them dropped into I've signed up for reminders about them. So they just drop into my inbox, so I can go right to something positive or educational. So I'm informed, but then I consciously, and this is the strategy around optimism, right? This is my strategy. I can watch the news, but then automatically move to a TED Talk or reading something positive or balancing the scales there, because I know how important it is on what we read, listen to, and watch impacts our energy. So it's not that you don't have to watch the news. It's just having a strategy to overcome that, right? To balance it out. Another strategy to increase your optimism is looking at the people you're spending time with in your life, right? Who was it that said we are most like the 5 people we spend the most time with?
I believe it's Jim Rohn.
I believe you are right. And when you think about that, like, wow, that was a big slap in the face for me many years ago when I first heard that. And I thought about the energy of some of the people I spent a lot of time with and how that brought me down. And so now I'm much more conscious about the people I spend time with, like Loubna, right? Right? That's exactly. We talk regularly because
Yeah.
it helps to keep that optimism. And when I forget, Loubna reminds me. And when Loubna forgets, I remind her, because we do forget. We're human. And that's where we have to be easy on ourselves also, remembering that when you're having a bad day, when that optimism, and I say bad, and I'm not judging it as bad, but when the vibration is lower, it's so important to be easy on yourself,
Yeah.
right? And call and talk to a friend that could help you remember
Yeah.
about the hope
Yeah.
that you forgot about.
Yeah. And I love that you just said when you have a bad day. In my experience, that's exactly what we say to ourselves. So to piggyback on the thing that you shared at the beginning of how we talk to ourselves, and believe it or not, you don't have to be a psychiatric patient to be able to talk to yourself. We all do it. Throw that one in. We all do it, and the way that we talk to ourselves really matters. And one of those things, and I'm very mindful of language, is we tend to say I'm having a bad day when we're actually referencing one event that has impacted us in a bad way. And I
Yes.
think that that is one of the ways that you can notice the patterns in your internal dialogue, as we say, of how many times you say something like that. It wasn't the whole day. It could never be the whole day, because we go through our days ranging from positive because you woke up again and enjoyed a good cup of coffee, or went to spend some time with your loved ones, or however you spend it. And usually that gives us a good feeling, unless you watch the news, ladies and gentlemen. So please, please, please don't start your day with watching the news. That is the best advice I could ever give to anyone. But then something happened, you are stuck in traffic, and in your state changes, but you're not stuck in traffic all day long. So don't report back on, I had a bad day, unless you truly had, well, the day was bad. Usually it's just one or two events, but we report back on that day being completely bad. You're telling your brain that you had a bad day. That is what your brain is remembering. So next time when someone asks you, how's your month been? Your brain will go, oh, well, you had so many bad days. Tips, Wendy's, because I know that a lot of people talk to themselves, and because of the negativity bias, it is mostly negative. How do we flip the switch?
Very good question. So it's paying attention to how you feel, right? Because you'll know what you're thinking by how you feel, right? So if your
Okay.
vibration is high, you're feeling energetic, you're feeling optimal, you're feeling positive, then you're probably talking to yourself and telling yourself some pretty good things. Now, if you notice that your energy, your vibration is lower, and you're feeling more worry or doubt or a lack of trust, then it is time to pause and think about what you're thinking, because our thoughts do create our feelings. And so if you're someone that has a hard time in raising their vibration, you could try using affirmations, which we've all heard about. Now, the little twist I like to share about affirmations is that, just by going and saying, I am happy, or I am joyful, or I am optimistic, sometimes it feels like it's not the truth. Right. So if that's true, but for some people it does. Right. And so for some people, they could claim it. I am happy. I'm optimistic. I am abundant. If that's you, claim that and use that as your part of your self-talk. Weave that into your inner radio station that you listen to regularly. If you have a hard time believing the I am, what has been very beneficial for me and my clients is using, I am in the process of becoming a joyful person. I am in the process of being optimistic. Can you feel the difference in that, Loubna?
Yeah, because then you're being compassionate and empathic empathetic towards yourself, that you may not believe yet that you're there, but you do believe that you're making progress on becoming more optimistic. And I think that that's a very important thing to emphasize, is whenever we want to change our behavior so that we change our habits, because that's basically it. A consistent behavior and consistent practices turn into a habit, and our habits start defining us. So on the road to more optimism in your life, so you can be more in the thriving part of the equation than in the moving away from things, it's important to realize that you're making progress. We tend to be focused on the outcome and attached to the outcome and completely forget about the journey towards it. But every day that you can condition your brain into, I am making progress toward, is better than thinking, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet, because that becomes your internal radio station that you're playing, and your brain is going, okay, but you're not there yet. You're not there yet. And and the brain is one hell of a supercomputer that will provide you with exactly what you tell it to do. So if you're telling your brain you are not there yet, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that can perpetuate for a very long time.
Yes. Very true. Very true. My favorite story around affirmations, just quickly, is I used to smoke cigarettes for many, many years. And I quit a few times, and then I started back. And then my husband, Matt, said, enough. He never smoked. And he was like, you must stop. This is not working. And so I started using the affirmation, I prefer health. I prefer health. I prefer health. And I would use that affirmation while I was standing outside smoking cigarettes. I prefer health. And what started to happen over time, and it was about over a 3 to 4 week period, is that every time I would say that, and then all of a sudden I'd say, I prefer health, I'd be craving a cigarette, I'd say, I prefer health, and I'd let that craving I wouldn't have one. And that's why I started smoking less. I prefer health. I prefer health. And then came that one day that it was like, that's it. I'm done. And it was a process. And it was really my thoughts supported my desire. And then my actions increased my results.
Yeah. I love that. I love it. So we've been talking about strategic optimism, and Wendy has been sharing some strategies on how you can enhance your optimism in a very intentional way. And the first being, notice how you talk to yourself. Notice your internal dialogue or your internal radio station, whichever language you prefer. And the second, now this is going to be tough. I don't remember the second strategy.
Well, the second, we talked about what you watch, read, and the people you pay, the people you're spending time with. So what you watch and read and listen to, right? Make sure it's positive, and then the people you spend time with.
Yeah, so control your input, and we have so many options to choose from that it's very important that you're very intentional. And one of the last things that I would like to share, I know that we're both, Wendy and I, are very big advocates of not watching the news. Now, it doesn't mean you don't have to watch the news at all. If you still want to be connected to whatever happens into your local neighborhood or your country or even the world, it is more about not watching the news at the beginning of your day, but later in the day. And then even being very intentional about why you're listening or watching the news, then doing it at the beginning of the day. So don't think in any way, shape or form. I just remember that I went cold turkey and didn't watch the news at all for 90 days straight, because I wanted to unlearn that habit of mine of wanting and needing to be on top of everything. So I went cold turkey, but that is how it works for me. I know that it doesn't work for everyone, but the most important essence of that message is control your input and just don't start your day like that. Make it a positive and inspirational start of your day, and then later on add those inputs that we would classify as negative.
Well, and don't also, Loubna, just to add on, and don't watch it at the end of the day also, right?
God, no.
The 11 o'clock, 10 and 11 o'clock p.m. news here in the States, and Okay, if you're going to watch that, then make sure you watch Seinfeld after, you know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
something like that. So you go to bed laughing instead of crying.
Yeah, and I would definitely, if you're going to do this and you want to create a practice around it, because right now your practice is different, then make sure you balance it out. So make sure that you the positive inputs outweigh the negative input. So if you watch the news 2 or 3 times a day and make sure that it's around lunch or so, or early afternoon, then the rest of your inputs on that day, make sure that they're inspirational and positive. And at the end of the night, it's better to watch a comedy than anything else, because then you go to bed in a positive state instead of a negative one. So that's an absolute great one. Now, any last tips, Wendy, for those that are watching this live or on the recording, on how to enhance their optimism?
Yes, one last tip. As entrepreneurs, typically at the end of our day, we'll look back, or I'll say I will. I have to claim it. There are days, for many years, I looked at all the things that I didn't get done in my day. Because, come on, as an entrepreneur, your work is never done, really. And if it is, it's just for a second. But when you have good boundaries, you can walk away from your work. The point I want to make is, instead of like in that moment when you're finishing your day and you're going, oh my gosh, I didn't get everything done, stop and ask yourself, what went well today? What went well? And sit, because you get more accomplished than you realize.
Oh, yeah.
Because we think about all the things we didn't get done. Once again, that's that natural negativity bias showing up. So just by listing a few things that went well for the day is going to have you make that shift from the desk to the dining room table with much more optimism and happiness and confidence that you could move into the evening and enjoy yourself than being weighed down by all the tasks that you didn't accomplish. Because you get a lot done. I know you do. And if you don't, well, that's a whole nother conversation.
Most definitely, yeah. And it reminds me of one of my last clients that I had at the end of last year, who I was an accountability coach for, and I made her on a weekly basis every 7 days to first report back on what she did do, so what she got accomplished, and then think about, okay, what does that mean for the next 7 days in terms of you achieving your goals as an entrepreneur. And every week she would start the conversation, look, I'm so happy that we've got that call scheduled because I completely forgot to do it. So just before the call, I went down and wrote everything that I did accomplish. And every time I look at that piece of paper, I'm thinking, oh, I did more than I thought, because her first initial thought was, I didn't do that much this week. And oh my God, I have to tell Loubna that I didn't accomplish much. But purely that exercise, and she did it in a couple of minutes just before our call, it really says, oh, I did. It changed the energy of our conversation. She got way more done in the period of time that I was her accountability coach than she would ever have done in the previous 8 months. And she still has it as a consistent practice to check on Friday, what did I really accomplish? That's a very powerful advice and suggestion and strategy to adopt. So Wendy, as people are looking and watching and listening and thinking, oh, want me some more Wendy, how can they connect with you?
Well, if you're watching this on Facebook, come be a friend of mine. Come on, words, come on out. Be a friend of mine. I don't know what just happened there. At facebook.com/peoplegrower. That is where you can connect with me, and would love to connect with you. And look for starting next week, I'll be starting again a weekly Journey to Joy on Wednesdays at 11:11 a.m. Eastern. So you could connect with me there. And of course, visit my website, wendywatkins.com. There's all kinds of juicy stuff there for you.
Awesome. Well, Wendy, thank you so much for giving your time with us and sharing all of your awesome strategies around optimism. I know that it has been valuable and beneficial for every member of the Exponential Heroes Facebook group. And I am looking forward to next week for another expert series. For now, have an amazing day. And don't forget, joyful day.
Thank you, Loubna. Great to be here. Bye, everyone.
Bye.